Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to PSGL. George Morgan here, your commentator, alongside me, TK, who is going to be rounding off the season with me.
Down the inside,
Absolutely impossible scene.
This is for the win between these two.
I'm on the edge of my seat.
He needs to get it done now.
Blakey will dive to the inside.
We're robust, we've got our elbows out.
Ronar takes the lead.
Because here comes Alfie Butcher.
Can't really complain with that one.
It's not going to be easy. The pressure is on, of course.
Yarda Watmere is your champion.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening wherever you are in the world. And welcome back to PSGL for what is another social race here this week, where today we head to Interlagos for our, I believe, fourth social race on the F1 26 DLC. It should be a fun one tonight. Of course, this is Split 2. Split 1 is at 8 o'clock, a little bit later on. But my name is Max Ring, and joining me in the commentary box tonight is Omi. How are you, Omi, on this Thursday evening?
I'm doing very well, Max. Great to be with, first of all, you and also the rest of the audience as well who are watching on. Of course, my first race of this game cycle. I wanted to make sure you didn't have to see my face for too long. But as we're reaching the end of social races and as we are getting closer to our season getting underway, I had to make sure that I popped in to watch and enjoy a bit of this new era that we've got going on in PSGL, which is, of course, as a result of the DLC and the real-life changes that we've had with the regulation of car.
Yeah, certainly is indeed. And it should be a rather eventful evening where, of course, drivers, they're still learning, of course, the new systems around different circuits, and they're also still learning not only the battery itself, but the tyre wear too, because, of course, the cars handle a lot differently. The tyre wear works a lot differently as well, so strategies are also still up in the air. So, drivers are now just heading out onto the circuit for qualifying, of course, here in Interlagos, and the first driver round seems to be, if I can find them, it seems to be one of the Haas cars, I believe, and it's of, if I could, Christopher in 17th at the moment. He's just making his way through the final couple of corners. So, Omi, as it's your first qualifying session, take us away with the first lap of qualifying here tonight.
There we go, jumping on board with the Haas. You can, of course, see taking the wide line just to prioritize the entry, but then going slightly deep as he made his way into the corner. And then this is turn number 3 as you make your way and keep your foot pinned to the floor. Of course, to the Retro Apostle, we use the corner names more compared to the corner numbers around this circuit, but this is the 4th turn that he's just gone through. And then you're about to climb all the way up to Ferradura, and your first real challenge when it comes to Sector 2 of the lap as he throws the car in. Remember, this is just a banker lap. This is just the drivers beginning to try and get an understanding of the grip that they've got underneath them. The circuit's going to be improving all of the time across this session in the remaining 15 minutes and 30 seconds that we've got. A few drivers would have been practicing, a few have not, because of course it's a social race, so some of them are very much turning up and seeing what they've got underneath them. But as you can see, we didn't really stay pushing on board with Christopher, but it's just the drivers beginning to set some laps, and then from there they will try and improve further later on in this session. Usually we'd be battling for a point for pole position, but it's of course not a season race, it's just a social race. So what we can do today is just enjoy all of the laps at the limit and then the racing that's about to come our way before the actual season begins.
Yes, we certainly can indeed, as Marvin Goldman and Thomas Bowser occupy that front row of the grid provisionally. Christoph just puts himself in front of Danny Garcia. Kamensky now to the top, the first driver into the 1 minute 7 to 7.9 from the Aston Martin, and Zozo slots into second place, around about 2 tenths shy, as we have drivers now coming across the line thick and fast, and Dory is now just coming through the final couple of corners. Let's see what the Mercedes man can do. Of course, straight line mode will be activated halfway down this straight And then up to the line, what's it going to be? A 1 minute 10.0 from the Mercedes. His teammate Nolfo has just set himself up for another attempt, aborted the previous lap. Concept 7, who a lot of you will know at home, of course, the content creator. He's here tonight and looking to make him up, but he's backed off his previous lap and looking to go again, say along with Noofo in that front. And then we've also got Menzu down in 18th, who is backing off a lap time as well. Jotty in the Ferrari now making their way through the middle sector. So let's see what they can do. A big old spread so far in times. 3 seconds separate first to 13th. So it's a big old gap there, Omi, that hopefully as this session ticks by will slowly be eaten into.
Yeah, we're just building our way into the session, I guess. Let's hope, as you mentioned, that we're going to see further improvements and drivers going quicker and quicker. I mean, in terms of the gap that we've just seen, we were on board with Christopher to start us off with Rudding, and you could tell that there were a few errors in the lap, and of course he wasn't pushing due to it completely. So the gaps are hopefully going to be closing in, but Denis Kaminsky at the top, which isn't really a surprise because he's definitely one of the drivers that I think a lot of people would have put forward to be nearer to the front in this field that we have got. It's not a field that I've covered much. I've only really commentated on the driver you're now on board with, Concept 7, in a charity event before. But other than that, it's a completely new field to me. I know you've commentated on a few of these drivers, Max, but it's going to be a lot of fun to see some of the future stars of our PSGL and, of course, the F1 sim racing scene as a whole make their way through the ranks in the next few seasons, but of course get to enjoy them completely on our screens today.
Yeah, certainly is nice to see these up-and-coming talents in these social races, as Man United forward Brian Mbuemo has now just put himself up into 6th place. Unsure who that is, but they've gone under the name Brian Mbuemo, and that is going to be their alias for tonight. And Dallin McTit, as he now makes his way through Pico de Pato in the Haas. He's not set a lap time just yet, along with Alex Lamas. Now through Yun Sao, and will make the drive all the way up the hill to the start-finish line. This will be the first competitive lap for the Haas driver, and what's it going to be? Where's this going to place McTeer? Across the line, it's third fastest, a 1 minute 8.234, a very respectable lap time, just behind FST teammate Zozo in the Red Bull. So very strong start from both Zozo and McTeer, but still at the moment here on me, nearing the halfway stage of the session, and no one close enough to Kamensky just yet. But a lot of these drivers have only done one run in this session, whereas Marvin Gold is now starting his second attempt. Let's see how big of an improvement we can find between the first 2 laps. It's actually, I say that, he does pick up an invalidation.
Yeah, so we're going to have to wait to answer your question, Max, but we've still got 10 minutes and 50 seconds to go to do that. And Dory is the driver we're on board with now as well, as they get ready and get ready to push. A 1 minute 9.624 is the lap time that they've got on the board. They'll push later. They're coming into the pits for now, so we'll wait and see what they are able to do. Alex Lamas has just retired from the session, so we'll see them hopefully later on in the race, but we're not going to get a time set on the board by them as we jump on board with Christoph through turn 4.
Yeah, nicely done there in the first sector. 3 attempts found, and that could be a difference between the Lyco into the first corner, or potentially just being able to push that a little bit more on the brakes as we now make our way into that middle sector. Now heading down through turn 8, and is making his way all the way up the hill into the Pico Zapato. Going to be braking just as the curb starts. Roll the car through, and you see a lot of the drivers maybe a bit more hesitant on the power now to try build up as much battery as they can for those long straights. Middle sector split, half a second found from Christoph. This is looking like a 1 minute 8 at the moment. A big slide out of Yun Sao as we now make our way up the hill to the start-finish line for the V-Carb. Has run out of battery already, but straight line mode is active, as we make our way to the line. Christoph, it's a 2/10 improvement, so that pushing early on in the first and middle sector did cost the V-carb slightly there. Stays 10th fastest, Omi, and it shows that difference in battery management over the course of a lap can really pay dividends. That maybe if you're just a little bit slower through the first, come the final sector, you can find a huge chunk of time.
Yeah, it's one of the elements that you've got now with this new regulation of car. Do you have it left for the end? 4/10 of an improvement so far for Golm as they will make their way through the final corner. And now we're going to wait and see. It all went away a few moments ago. You would have seen at this part of the circuit, but it's all about keeping the battery and over the line. Well, they lost a few thousandths of a second, and it's fourth position for now. But yeah, the battery management so important to make sure that you have some left all the way when you leave this part of the circuit and then up towards the line. This is your current provisional pole sitter with 8 minutes and 30 seconds to go. The only driver in the 1:07.9s as it stands, and Kamiński then comes over the line, shortest route to the line, but no improvement on his time. But still, the rest of the field are the ones who have the exam question set to them. Can they overcome the margin to try and take provisional pole? And the man who's going to try and answer that is Zozo, currently up as he heads towards the line. But does he have the battery left?
That is going to be the big question. Does Zozo have the battery? Has already depleted that energy on the run to the line. Can he take it away from Kamiński at this midpoint of the session? No, just falls short. Did not have the battery to hold on against the Aston Martin. And still Kamiński, the only driver in those 1:07s. Menzu has just started a lap. What about Thomas Bowser? He's up by a 10th and a half. In the middle sector, a big slide out of Yen Sao. We're seeing a lot of drivers get a little bit trigger happy out of that final corner, as once again we see another driver just starting to lose that battery deployment as they hit that straight line mode across the line. He does find some time, lost about half a tenth in that final sector, but up to 4th fastest. Dallin McTeer was able to find an improvement. He stayed out to do an extra run on the same set of tyres. Alvaro Marquez moves himself up into 7th place. What about the likes of Gianluca Nolfo a little bit further back? The Mercedes once again has invalidated and has backed off. Not been the greatest session so far from the Mercedes, but now we head to the McLaren of Concept 7 as he makes his way through the middle sector, and the middle sector split 1.2 seconds to the good, a little bit wide from the apex there at Yen Sao, and will make the dart all the way to the start-finish line. And will the McLaren be able to break into that top 10 potentially with this lap? Across the line we shall go, and it's 7th fastest for Concept 7. It was destined in the name, and it's a 1 minute 8.695 for the McLaren. A very respectable lap time there, Omi. 3 tenths off Marvin Goal, probably about where he expected to be.
Yeah, so we're mentioning a lot about the battery. That's one of the great examples that we can show you. About a whole second gained. The gap between himself and the next position was 1.8. He was up by 1.2. He ended up going 8 tenths and then a further 8 tenths faster. So 1.6 seconds gain just purely on the run towards the line. So that is, if you completely use all of the battery early on in the lap, by the time you make your way up towards the line, it really can be 1.6 seconds that you can gain. So that's one of the examples of it, of what we keep going on about in this session, because it can be basically make or break. You can see someone really improving by the time you go to the second sector. By the third sector, they're aiming for something like that, a 1:07.798, and Denis Kamiński continues his fast running at the front of the field. The driver you're on board with right now has gone even quicker and still remains the only driver in the 1:07s.
And it also proves as well here, Omi, about how the tyres really do not hit that cliff as quickly as they did on previous titles or previous regulations, because Kamiński has already done 2 laps on that tyre by the time he finished that lap, and he was still able to find an improvement. So this is something also these drivers need to note now for qualifying sessions in the future, is that those tyres can do multiple runs around some circuits, and that could be the difference now, Omi, between, of course, the timings and not doing those 4 runs, instead doing 3, maybe even 2 runs in a session, because you can stay out on a tyre for so long, keep finding that time and keep pushing forwards and it's going to make qualifying a lot more interesting, especially with carrying more fuel as well. So it means that one time we may see from a driver with 2 minutes to go maybe their benchmark, and with the same set of tyres they find 3-4 temps over the course of that final lap.
Yeah, so a little bit Formula 2 and Formula 3 style, the way they do their qualifying sessions, where they have 30 minutes on the clock, a bit longer than us, but they do sometimes 2 runs, maybe sometimes even 3 depending on the circuit and the tyre availability that they have. And then in those runs they however do multiple laps. That's a spin for the Red Bull and very nearly into the side of Dallin McTeer, and that's our first, I guess, scary moment that we've had on the circuit as well. So that was Banner who had that moment in the Red Bull, currently 13th position. So they lost the car. We're on board with them now and very nearly into the side of the Haas. The Haas that currently runs in third. But yeah, great point mentioned by you in terms of that. And I'm looking forward to seeing whether that will be the case across the season when we do actually get to the calendar which we'll be able to talk you through later on.
Yes, we certainly shall. Either between the race or after the race, we'll talk you through the calendar that did get released in the mid-week. Nolfo has now retired as well, so he'll start the best of 18, just not been able to get a time on the board and has thrown in the towel. Danny Garcia in the V-Carb has just started a attempt as we now look at what he can do through the middle sector. Currently on a 1 minute 9.7, slowest of the drivers who have set competitive lap times so far, and is making his way through Pinarino. Going to be up all the way into the Pico de Pato, breaking into the curb. Starts a very narrow entry, and that's going to really compromise his exit out of the corners. The car slides as well as he reached that apex. A little bit off camber as Pico de Pato, and about half a second found, but still racing lines not the greatest from the V-car, maybe a little bit too narrow on the entry, costing him dear when it comes to overall lap time, but it's going to be straight line mode activated, battery all the way depleted, across the line, a slight tap on a wall as well to boot, and it's 15th fastest from Garcia. Lost a lot of time in that final sector, but I think a lot of that and could be so much quicker if he was just able to hit those racing lines a little bit better.
Yeah, absolutely, and it all comes down to, we've seen lots of laps where apexes have been missed, and if you join us today waiting for the split later on, the drivers where we'll see some of the drivers who've in recent times been in some of the higher tiers, then of course you do have to remember these are still drivers that really aren't the finished article. They are very much still learning. It applies to all of the drivers in F2, F3 as well, but more to a degree here, so you won't be seeing exactly what you might be seeing later on, and what you usually get in the 4 tiers that we've typically streamed over the last few seasons on the PC side. For example, Concept 7, he was running in PC Tier 7, just to put it into perspective for you all, in the latest season that we had in PSGL. Of course, a new car now, still the same game, it's part 2, but a brand new era and a brand new regulation and something completely different to get on top of for the drivers.
Yeah, certainly is indeed. Not seeming any improvements so far. I say that looking at Marvin Gomez, he makes his way to the line, puts himself up into 5th fastest. Might just have time to back off and go again. Zozo's just started an attempt. Kaminsky was down in the first sector by 2.7 seconds, so the Aston Martin not finding an improvement. McTeer and Menzu are both just setting up to go again. Actually, no, McTeer coming into the pit lane, so best of 3rd for the Haas driver here this evening. But for Menzu, he's just going to be starting an attempt now. What about Zozo? He's invalidated through the Sino de Largo. So that's going to be all he wrote so far in this session, but we'll have another attempt in the bag. Marquez just setting up for an attempt, and Buemo has aborted. Patrick now just making his way through the Senna S's. It seems like a lot of these drivers have aborted to get ready for these final couple of minutes, as Christoph is up by 2 tenths in the first sector, looking to try and break into that top 10.
Absolutely. So that's what we're going to now follow and wait and see. So the battle for pole position, well, someone's going to need to find a mountain load of an improvement if they are to get there. It's currently Dennis Kaminsky who's still going to be looking to try and improve a 1 minute 7.798 that he's set on the board so far. The checkered flag is flying here at Sao Paulo. We're improving by 2.5 tenths of a second on board with the Racing Bulls of Christoph, currently in 12th. Can they try and get themselves further up the order? How's the battery looking as they come over the line? Currently in 13th, finds the time all the way up to 7. Just ahead is Golm in P5. They've also taken the checkered flag. McTeer is done. Let's go in the middle to Thomas Balser, and now he's going to try and find an improvement over the line. Nothing that Kaminsky can do, but can Balser now try and find the time, with Patrick going up to P5.
Lovely stuff there from the Aston Martin to put himself up to P5. Thomas Balser might just be able to displace him though, and up to the line goes the Ferrari, and it's up to 4th fastest. So second row of the grid for the Scuderia man, and Zozo not improving in the middle sector. 3 tenths down, I believe. That will now just give Kaminsky that breathing room for the entirety of the final sector, and Zozo will start on that front row of the grid. The only man in the 1 minute 7s was Dennis Kaminsky. You know, a weave of frustration there from Zozo, potentially had the time in hand, just was not able to show it. But for Dennis Kaminsky, it's pole position here in Interlagos, the fastest man on the circuit by quite some margin, and also to be the only driver in the 1 minute 7s. That's certainly a feat you do like to see, especially if you are Kaminsky, being the only driver to be able to break that barrier. It's him from Zozo, Dallin McTeer, Thomas Balser, Menzu in 5th, Arctic in 6th, Marvin Golm, Christoph, Concept 7 who ends up in the top 10, and Alvaro Marquez who rounds out the top 10. Then it's Embuemo, Christopher, Fernana, Barna, Jotti, Danny Garcia and Dory, and Nolfo and Lamas, the only 2 who were not able to set laps in that session. But Omi, Kaminsky, what a dominant display that was there in qualifying. Wasn't able to improve in the final runs, but it did not matter. He was just able to, of course, take that pole position when he needed to in the early stages of the session. He could have just done a one and done in the entirety of that.
Yeah, it was incredible. We were waiting to see whether anyone would find an improvement over time. It didn't come, it didn't happen, and instead he lies as the only driver in those 1 minute 7s. But now it's the race. Now he's got to try and keep his nose clean, not get involved in any of the chaos that might go on left, right and centre. And we'll see whether he's going to be able to do that from pole position on what is a short run down towards the first corner. But a lot can happen on that run. And then also you've got to remember the second straight that you've got towards turn number 4. It's one of the great circuits when it comes to real life. And if it's a great circuit for real life, we already know that it's going to be an absolute thriller for the game. And let's see what type of social race we're going to get. Split 2 about to come your way in a few moments time once we get those 5 red lights on and eventually get those 5 red lights off.
Yes, we certainly will indeed. Of course, this for many could be their first competitive race around Interlagos, so a lot to learn. Of course, a lot to decipher. Not only the battery management, but the strategy as well. As we saw in qualifying, not too much tyre wear here at Interlagos. You could do multiple laps on the same set of tyre. So could we potentially see a medium soft strategy if those tyres do last long enough? It'll be unlikely, but don't be surprised in a social race where nothing's to lose. See drivers try something peculiar just to see if it works, just to see if they can do that in a proper competitive session, in a proper PSGL league race. And if it doesn't work, it's not the end of their, well, end of their careers. It is just a little testing session. That's what these social races are. They are just pretty much pre-season testing for a lot of these drivers. It's going to be interesting as well to see how drivers develop, how setups develop as the season goes on, and how those strategies when it comes to attacking and defending with that battery also develop as everyone starts to understand the game and these regulations more and more. We're still just waiting for those 5 red lights to come on. It just, at the moment, Omi, it seemed that, if any, at the minute, Kaminsky has such a big advantage, especially in that qualifying session, that he may just be able to hold on to things. But of course, quali pace is one thing, race pace is something entirely different. But we are going to those 5 red lights now, as we see, of course, Zozo and Kaminsky on the front row of the grid. 5 red lights are on, And we're underway here in Interlagos, and it seems to be a very strong start from the Aston Martin, who's able to pull a car length clear as we head into that first corner, and he leads from Zozo and Thomas Balser, who's been able to jump Dallin McTeer in those first few phases at the start of this race. There's been Bremo around us with Christopher in the background. There's been contact at turn 1 between two drivers who are in the mid-pack in that one, as we now see a little bit further back, Christoph versus Marvin Gold. Christoph with the move, he tags the back there of Dennis Kamensky, who has fallen all the way down throughout this field. I don't know if there was some connection issues that dropped him a little bit further back to get him into that process, but he has now been spun round and dropped down to 15th place, so a disaster there for Dennis Kamensky, who makes that contact and goes round, and there's more contact further up between Danny Garcia and Marquez, and also between the Ferrari of Jotti and Barner, as we now make our way into the Pico de Pato for the first time. But it's Zozo who leads from Thomas Balser, with Dallin McTeer in hot pursuit of the Ferrari.
Oh, well, we mentioned quite literally that he had to keep his nose clean and hope there wasn't any drama. Well, it all happened behind him as he was getting attacked, and that is such a shame for him. On board we go with McTeer on the hard compound of tyres, but is already looking to try and draw alongside, but not able to make the move as he starts to run out of battery, and then of course also backs out. Remember, this is a long race and you've got to keep your nose clean, and that was very nearly contact there for the Williams car of Marvin, who's now going to be on the back foot. And you're going to have Danny Garcia all over the back as now we make our way down the back straight. 1 second advantage at the front for Zozo. Is anyone darting alongside to try and make a move? For now, it's single file between our top drivers. Slightly wide in the background for Patrick. But he's going to be fighting himself, just holding on to the position. As further up ahead, we've got Alex Lamas, who's absolutely pushing and looking to try and make their way forward, currently running in 7th.
Alex Lamas has had a lightning launch. He was last on the grid, and already here on lap 2, he's up into 7th place, putting pressure onto Christoph in front. Concept 7 has also had a very good start from 9th. It's been disastrous for both the Aston Martins of Kamensky and Partick, who have both fallen down to 12th and 14th respectively. But Alex Lamas, what a getaway from the McLaren, kept his nose clean and was just able to make his way through the carnage. Same can't be said though for Gianluca Nofo, who's just got past Partick, as here comes Alex Lamas onto Christoph, and he moves up now into 6th place, just behind teammate Concept 7. So a really good outing so far in the opening 3 laps for both the McLarens. Something's happened to Barner as he's made contact with Partick into the first corner. The Aston Martin gets sent round, and I think there's some front wing damage as well for the Red Bull to add misery to his race. Yes, there is on the right side of the car, but there's been a lot of contact and a lot of collisions. And while all this is going on, Zozo's checking out front. 1.4 seconds between himself and Dallin McTeer.
Enjoying a nice Thursday drive at this stage, I think it's fair to say, for Zozo, but there is a long way to go. There's still a lot of chaos to happen. We've had a lot of chaos in the opening laps. This is only the 3rd tour that we're coming to the end of now. And it's getting very close further back. We're getting an overtake for Concept 7 down the inside. He's gone, and it's going to be side by side in the battle for 4th. We join this battle live, and around the outside, getting the place before we arrive to the last braking zone of the circuit is Concept 7, but a slightly compromised line, and now Alex Lamas is going to try and go further on the attack. He's currently in 6th. He's going to try and get past Menzies now down the straight. This has been absolutely remarkable stuff from Alex Lamas. They're both going to get closer to the McLaren ahead. Well, forget about that. Alex Lamas is through and up to P5. The driver who started last is running 5th on lap 4.
That is a great start from Lamas as we see Kamensky, Marquez and Jotti now all get involved in the tussle. I think Danny Garcia went wide as well through 3, and that's allowed Kamensky to get the run onto the V-Carb and make his way up into the top 9. Partick is our first retirement on the race, unfortunately. Out wide goes Garcia, and that's allowed Jotti through as well, who's now pushing Kamensky, as we can see from this aerial shot, and into the back of Kamensky, and the Aston Martin is round once again. He was able to collect the car and somehow keep it facing in the right direction, but he's now down to 14th place for the pole sitter. This race goes from bad to worse, and for Aston Martin it's been a disastrous opening 4 laps here as Garcia's now back up to 10th, but he's run wide out of the Pico de Pato, and this might now allow Alvaro Marquez to get the move done on the inside into Yansal. Forces the V-Carb deep, who's got the rear all locked up, and through goes Marquez, and also Gianluca Nolfo as well, and also Funarana might also try and making his way through onto the V-Carb, who's struggling big time here as they now make their way up into that first corner. Nofo looks to the inside of Marquez, and Funarara just backs off. So as we look at Nofo, he's been able to make his way through, or has he? No, he's not. There's contact, a big pile up on the exit of the Center S's. 3 cars involved, and unfortunately that has brought out the virtual safety car, but a lot of damage to 3 wagons there, and that's going to be all 3 of their races run, as all of them will have huge front wing damage.
Chaos, pure chaos so far. Every lap that we're turning around this circuit, there is something going on of big consequence to people's races. And as you say, the virtual safety car is deployed as a result due to the debris. So now the drivers will very much go into just respecting the delta and then hope the delta's green when they get back to the green flags. They'll get a warning. They'll need to make sure it's green. If not, they'll get a drive-through penalty. And that is very much race ruining. So let's hope they can all avoid that in a few moments' time. But I guess everyone does need that breather because it's been quite an extraordinary start to this one, where it has been elbows out racing up and down the field. Well, I say up and down. Zozo's had it all his own way pretty much after the opening turns. He's got a 2.6 second advantage, and he is right now just running his own race, luckily far from everyone else to avoid all the chaos.
Yeah, certainly has. Zozo has really capitalised on all the carnage behind him. He's now 2.1 seconds clear as we head back to green flag racing. We are green once again here in Interlagos, and Concept 7 is getting closer to the back of Thomas Bowser, and he might potentially even make a move here into the Sino de Largo, but no, just not close enough. Wasn't using too much of the battery, just happy to sit behind the, of course, Ferrari driver. Alex Lamas has actually been able to promote himself up into 3rd. We missed that while the carnage was going on. But he's now up into 3rd place, hunting down Dallin McTeer, who's got a little bit closer to Zozo in the process. He's now 1.9 seconds behind. I wouldn't be surprised maybe within a few laps here, Omi, those hard tyres start to be the one you want to be on over those mediums. And I'm expecting the drivers on the mediums in around about probably lap 14 to 15 with how we saw the softs hold up. As in the background, Nofo able to get past Barner there and up into 14th place. But certainly the pendulum is going to swing to those hard tyres in a few laps' time.
Yep. On board with Lamas. He's on the mediums for now. He's up against McTeer, who's on that hard compound of tyre. And Alex Lamas continuing his extraordinary drive. I mean, he's got some great pace underneath him, but that opening lap is going to be worth seeing again from his perspective, because that was absolutely unbelievable. The way he was able to pick his way through so many cars, and he's picked his way through another one. 2nd place now for Alex Lamas. Zozo may have had it his own way so far, but I doubt that's going to remain the way with the pace levels of Alex Lamas. He's going to immediately try and go straight to the attack and straight to the assault of that time gap, and is going to eventually arrive on the door knocking of the Red Bull.
Well, through the Veradora, he has already found 2/10 of a second onto Zozo in front. So he's certainly making some inroads onto that Red Bull already. Just needs to utilise that pace as much as he can while he has the tyre and try not to burn it out too much, because that's the big issue. If you push too hard, you can burn out that tyre, and the likes of Zozo could try and pull away, because of course he's been saving at the front of the field. He's not had to battle, he's just been in his own world, and he's just been able to do his own thing. And for Dallin McTeer, he's been able to stick with the McLaren 4. Now, I'm not expecting these two to constantly keep swapping like we would have saw on previous titles. So they're just going to have their own race now as Lamas all over the curb. A big tank slapper there, and that's going to allow Dallin McTeer to potentially get the move done. But no, he sits behind once again as we see a yellow flag in the final sector, I think, for Andorra. As Lamas runs wide, I said maybe burning out those tyres if he pushes too hard, and I believe that certainly might have just happened, because he is starting to squirm all over the place as the rear tries to find any piece of traction it possibly can.
Yeah, it's definitely all over the place at the moment, that McLaren, and you're getting a great view of it on board with the Haas of Dallin McTeer as well. There we go once again. The rear just not looking comfortable, and if I'm Dallin McTeer, I would not be surprised if I go for a move basically. Now down this straight, you can see the traction difference, and McTeer also beginning to slide. Remember, the hard compound of tyres will be getting better with every meter that we run in this race as well. And now as we send it over the line. Of course, it'll be overtake mode for McTeer, along with the boost that he already has. And he's going to look to try and use it to his effect if a easy move is available. If not, then he won't want to make it a battle into corners. He won't want to risk contact like so many have today. So he'll pick the right moment and choose the right moment to make his way through.
He certainly will indeed. Maybe just knows Zozo's a bit too hard to catch right now, so you might as well just stick behind Lamas, save those tyres, and by the time Zozo comes in, then you start to push. Then you start to have that attack and try the overcut on to the Red Bull ahead. Concept 7 as well has been able to get past on Thomas Bowser, so he's now up into 4th place in the McLaren. So a brilliant outing so far from Concept 7, 9th on the grid, up into 4th currently. And for the Haas driver of Dallin McTeer, he's the highest place hard runner. Next closest driver is Menzu, of course, in the Williams, down in 6th place, closely followed by teammate Marvin Gold. Then a 2-second gap back to Christoph before a 4-second back to Jotty, and then Kamensky rounds out the top 10. And does McTeer go for the move this time around as we run on board with the Haas driver, getting closer with the straight line mode active, of course, and into that first turn. And no, just not close enough. Not looking for a move. See, just saving his battery, as you can see on the bottom of the dash screen there. But for Concept 7, he's dropped that 1 second, that overtake window from Dallin McTeer, and this might give Balsar the opportunity to now fight back against the McLaren. So both the McLarens under pressure, it seems here, and Concept 7 has cracked. He's run wide, and that might also allow Menzu through. It has, and for the McLaren, he's lost 2 places through the Sino de Largo as he crumbles under pressure.
Yep, the McLarens had the attacking part of the race. Now they're very much doing the defending as well at this stage. Patrick, your only retirement so far, and Dory comes in getting a 10-second time penalty. We're speeding in the pit lane. Haven't seen them retire yet, so it seems like it must have just been accidental, and they'll continue on with their race as well. Still on board though with Concept 7 as they rotate their way through now the final corner. Does McTeer have a chance? Getting closer, but no, backing out of it as he makes his way through to the opening part of the circuit until he makes his way past over the line. So waiting, and then when he got to the midway part of the straight, then made sure to deploy the battery, then blasted on through. And that is the moment that we were telling you about, where he's very much well ahead before he arrives into the braking zone. That's what he would have been looking to try and do. Is there a chance though for Lamas to try and come back? He won't really have anything to come back with, bar a little bit of battery, and he'll know it's not really worth making the move back. So for now, it's McTeer up to 2nd position in the contest, and he is going to be looking to try and, of course, run this longer on those hard compound of tyres. That's Menzu to the inside of Balsa, and that's a change in position. Williams ahead of Ferrari as Danny Garcia picks up a time penalty at the back. One of 2 drivers now with a penalty next to their name.
Yep, unfortunately there for Garcia, as his race goes from bad to worse. But it also is interesting to note now, those hards certainly do seem to be that quicker tyre. They have certainly swung into the favour of the pendulum, now into that white wall tyre's hands. And we're going to see maybe Thomas Balsar drop a position to Marvin Golm as well. And that gap between Zozo and McTeer now 1.4 seconds. So it's getting closer between the top 2. And Alex Lamas still following, hot on the heels of the Haas driver in front. You can see him entering turn 1 in the foreground. And it's 1.1 seconds now, that gap. Zozo must have made a mistake into that first corner, maybe locking the rears or braking a little bit too early, or even doing some Lyco to try save some battery as much as he can to defend. And here, talking about defending, here comes Marvin Golm attacking Thomas Balsar, who has no defence against the Williams. Scuderia Ferrari drops down to 6th place as both the Williams cars are now starting to make their way up through the field. So as the McLarens drop, the Williams starts again.
Yep, there's always people who are going to be, well, very much on the attack now at this part of the race, because it's very much roles reversed at this stage. Oh, out of the race we go with Marquez, and that's a shame. They've retired at the final corner of the circuit. We're heading to that part of the circuit now, so their day is very much done. There's the overtake mode line, so it'll be overtake mode now for McTeer, as he's going to go chasing on Zoza, so that'll give him a bit of extra performance when it comes to the straights, and you can use it at any part of the circuit, of course, to go alongside the boost mode that he's already going to have, and the battery that he'll be very much deploying, so it'll allow him to very much just run a bit quicker on this lap, and then eventually use it to close it and make the move on the circuit if he needs to, and when he needs to as well.
Certainly will indeed. As we now, of course, look at McTeer make his way through the Sino de Largo. And he is getting closer and closer to Zozo up in front. And for those medium runners, as I mentioned, I'm expecting we're in around about lap 14, 15. So it could be now, it could be in a few laps' time that we see those first pit stops be made. It just depends on how good those tyres really do feel. And for McTeer, he is really starting to gain. Those mediums have fallen off a cliff here for the Red Bull of Zozo. And he's just not got the grip compared to the Haas driver behind him. I wouldn't be surprised if either on this lap or the next, we see Zozo get overtaken by McTeer as Garcia retires from the session. Our third retirement in 13 laps. It's straight line mode and overtake mode activated as Zozo comes into the pit lane. So those tyres certainly were not in good shape as he comes into the pit lane. Our first of the front runners and first of the medium runners to make a planned pit stop.
Yep, so they come in and...
front wing change.
And yeah, the front wing's also being changed as well for some reason. I mean, in terms of they may have had that contact at the start that we were mentioning to you, and they may have just wanted it changed for the sake of it now because they know they will be attacked later on by those drivers on those hard compound tires. So they're going to try and get the work done now, try and push on. And I guess maybe they didn't want a bit of a deficit come later, unless it was just a setting that was set wrongly. And they forgot to change it back. But if not, then we're going to assume that there was a bit of contact at the race start when, of course, we saw Kaminsky drop down the order. And that is why they've just decided to wait it out because it wasn't completely urgent, but just decided to change it now.
Yeah, so for, of course, Zozo, that's going to cost him dearly. And for McTeer, a big old slide out of Yin Sao. That was a huge moment from the Haas driver. But, of course, that now gives him a little bit of a buffer to Zozo. So his main rival is going to be Alex Lamas, as he's now come into the pit lane as well, along with Thomas Balser. Concept 7, of course, stays out to avoid the double stack. We're seeing a lot of these medium drivers, runners now come into pit lane, as there goes Alex Lamas. A very clean, very easy pit stop. How far clear does he come out compared to Zozo, who's himself making his way through the final corner and up the hill into the first corner? Seems to be also some drag reducing systems on that Red Bull as well. They've just got the front wing. They've not got the structure that holds it into place. So it seems that Zozo trying something different in the aerodynamics. And for Alex Lamas, look how big that gap is. Pretty much the whole of the Retro Poster to himself. 3.5 seconds between himself and the Red Bull. That just shows how much Zozo lost in that wing change.
Absolutely. But it's Lamas then with the net race lead, having started last on the grid. Quite the storyline, and you know, well, it was very much, it seemed like by choice that they decided to start at the pack because of the pace that they probably did have. Yellow flags are flying in the middle sector back to green now, as we see Kaminsky dropping down the order. So it was surely them who had a moment. It's put them offline, and it means they've got no momentum, and they're being overtaken left, right, and centre. So they've just slotted in an 8th. Concept 7 comes into the pit lane. Kaminsky's also going to follow in as well, as he very much loses it into the pit lane. As Kaminsky gets himself a retirement now. So that was very much intentionally. That has no more further interest in continuing on in this race. So that is his day over. And what a shame considering the pace that he had earlier on, and he's shown us in qualifying.
Yeah, it's so much pace and was involved in incident after incident that most of the time wasn't even his fault. So unfortunate there for Kaminsky, excuse me, to end that race off early, but it just did not go his way at all after that pole position. He fell down the order, and it was a race to forget. But can still be happy with that qualifying though, showing he does have pace over the course of one lap. Just need better luck in those main feature races. Nolfo was able to make his way past on Jotty. He's now behind Banana in the Cadillac. Of course, one of the new teams to the grid. It's Cadillac and Audi, of course, taken over from Sauber. So it means that we have 2 new names on the grid as well here in PSGL in terms of teams. But for Dallin McTeer, He's pushing on at the moment, 3.7 seconds clear of Marvin Gomez, the yellow flag in the middle sector. That is for Kamensky's retired car. But it'll be interesting to see how much of an undercut now Lamas gets over McTeer, and when McTeer decides to come into the pit lane for a set of those medium tyres. We saw Lamas take them around about 15 laps. So I'm expecting McTeer to maybe come into the pit lane around about lap 20 to 21. Here, Omi, to then push all the way to the end as Lamas has just been able to make his way past on Jotty, who's gone very wide indeed, and that's allowed Imbuemo through as he now moves up into 7th, and Lamas having to navigate a whole heap of traffic here.
Yeah, very much an extended line there for the Ferrari, but Lamas, as you mentioned, having to deal with the traffic, having to try and fight their way by. So this is going to be a race that will come alive later. We're going to get a battle between McTeer and the man who is having to make the overtakes later on. But for now, it's overtake on overtake on overtake for Lamas, as you would expect with the different strategies that now meet in the middle. He'll have another overtake by turn number 1, and then he'll have exactly what he wants, and that is some clean air, because there's no one else for at least 12.6 seconds, and by then they should be in the pit lane, and he should be the net race leader and, well, official race leader by that point, as he'll be the one getting chased. But he makes the move into turn 1, now into 4, the 3 ahead still need to make a pit stop, and it's going to be his race until someone else, possibly someone like McTeer, does something different and tries to challenge later. So that's why this is going to be a bit of a slow burner. We're going to get the fight coming nearer to the end, so stick with us in this social race, because it's the main bit of it, and the fight for the win, it's all going to be happening later on. We're only at half race distance so far.
Certainly is indeed. This is going to be a race that builds up to something much bigger as these laps tick by, as now we see Zozo having to navigate through this traffic as himself as well. He's got Jotty and Thomas Balsar just behind him. Concept 7, 1.3 seconds back on Balsar. But for the Red Bull, what is he going to be able to do? How much time will he lose trying to make his way past the likes of Imbuemo, Nofo and Funana? And for Zozo, he'll have the straight line mode. He'll have, of course, the battery as well to play with as he gets closer to the Audi. As Alex Lamas picks up the fastest lap, as there in the foreground as well is Nolfo onto the Cadillac. And there is Zozo up into 7th place. Nice and easily done, but I wouldn't be surprised if in the middle sector here, Omi, he loses a heap of time behind the 2 cars in front.
Yeah, absolutely. With the Red Bull car, we very much could see, just due to the decision at the first part of the lap to be very much punishing in the middle part, but it was important to get some of the track position, and they'll use this middle part of the circuit now to try and get back some of the battery, and then have some to make an attack on the next straight. But, well, the new approach that Red Bull are going with at the front of the car, working well so far, I think it's fair to say, because they're making some overtakes, aren't they? They're being able to get through, so I wouldn't be surprised if we turn up to another social race later on, and we maybe have a few more cars, or even the actual season when we turn up to that, maybe a few more cars looking like that, who knows?
Yeah, you never know what we could see in that main season, which of course we'll talk about the calendar after the race. Here comes Zozo now onto Nolfo as they're going to drag race side by side all the way down that main straight. But it's Zozo who wins out with that bit more of a battery advantage. And he's now up into 5th place, 3.5 seconds behind Alex Lamas. Of course, he's fighting for the race victory here tonight. Lap 20 of 36. So 17 more laps to go. It seems like a lot, but in these kinds of races, it is not at all. And they will tick by very, very quickly indeed, especially around a circuit where an overall race lap is around about 1.8 to 1.9 seconds. So there is still plenty to play for here tonight. This is the yellow flag, and Dory has retired, and that's brought out a safety car. That is dreamland for McTeer, Golm and Menzu.
Well, there we go. We had a race laid out for you. That order that we were meant to go in is going to get completely changed. And into the pit lane is going to come Dallin McTeer under the safety car now. So it's very much a lot less time lost when you do this. And wow, Dallin McTeer, it's worked absolutely perfectly for him. But that is why in these races it can change suddenly and quickly. Because we were expecting this to be a fight right at the end of the race. We were expecting this to be a long wait until later on. It isn't that. It's going to be very much a race transformed, and it's exactly what Dallin McTeer was looking for. There is Lamas who's going to come into the pit lane, but directly, Lamas is going to go back out onto the circuit, I should say. He's going to continue on. It'll be McTeer who will go back onto the circuit. He'll be right behind on his strategy now, and he's going to be able to go on the attack on the safety car restart, make the move, and then try and pull away.
Yeah, that is exactly what the game plan will be. But he'll have the two hard-charging Williams drivers of Marvin Golm and Menzu just behind him. Zozo also did come into the pit lane during all that as well. So he just passed, of course, Nolfo at the perfect moment. And he has been able to make his way up into 6th place. Concept 7 has dropped down to 10th. He's behind Mbuemo now. He'll want to try and make some inroads. Balsa onto a fresh set of hards. Potentially went onto the harder strategy choice, meaning he didn't have 2 sets of the mediums. But, of course, here, Omi, for Alex Lamas, to keep a podium would be a very, very tricky feat. Having 6 lap-old hards against fresh mediums behind you, it is going to be no easy feat. But we saw the pace he had in that opening stint. Going to tire that last longer as well. Is he going to be able to hold on and take the victory here tonight? It's going to be interesting. And can he turn that McLaren into the widest McLaren we've ever seen since James Hunt back all the way in the 70s, where he had that illegal McLaren which was only millimeters too wide. So for Alex Lamas, it is going to be a big old mission for him now. But he knows he's got the pace. He knows he's got the car underneath him. For McTeer, though, it's got to get by instantly, or I could be under threat from the 2 Williams behind.
And another thing you don't want as well is to get yourself involved in contact. Whatever your dream goal is, whatever your dream race outcome is, you do not want to get yourself involved in contact. Jyoti picks up a penalty. They're still trying to close into the back of the group that you can see, and they're just about to do so as well in that Ferrari car, but they've picked a penalty up in doing so. But yes, as I was mentioning, whatever the outcome that you're dreaming of, later on, you've got to avoid contact. We've seen it so far in this race. A lot of battles, a lot of times when the drivers are battling into corners and going side by side, it leads to contact. So far in the social races, all of the ones that we've run, they've had moments of major consequence, which of course in the context of the race specifically, not in terms of a championship of course. These are very much just turn up, possibly gain a bit of pride, and very much just test things out, get used to racing and then focus on the actual season. But of course, if we're focusing on in this race and the winner outcome we've seen so far, it all go wrong for so many drivers. And let's hope that the ones that we do have in contention today can avoid that now in the remaining laps of this one, and it's going to be a sprint all the way until the end to claim our victor here in Brazil as we get ready to end our social races season, I guess part of the game cycle that we always do at the start of a game, or well, the DLC in this case, and then all eyes go to 3 seasons, which will take us to the highly anticipated F127 game as well, with all of the changes that they are intending to make.
Yes, it certainly will indeed. And of course, for these drivers, I believe there is only one more social race after this, which will be on Monday. That may be wrong. There may be one afterwards, but at the moment, last one that we know of is on a Monday. So there will be one more opportunity to get their little part of racing done. Their little, of course, last bit of knowledge that they can get around a different circuit to be done as well. Get into the rhythm for that main season. Safety car will surely be in at the end of this lap, and Alex Lamas will turn into Bernd Mailander, get us underway for a final 13-lap shootout here in Interlagos. It will be the McLaren on old hard compound tyres, defending from fresh mediums of the likes of McTeer, Golm and Menzu. Christoph is also in a similar situation to Alex Lamas, where he's on 8-lap-old hards. He's got to try hold on against Zozo and Fonana at least. Safety car is in at the end of this lap. So when does the McLaren decide to go? Does he go early, Or does he wait as late as he possibly dares? He's weaving to get as much temperature into those tyres because he needs it. Those hards will be very difficult to switch on in these dying stages, especially after they've done a few laps already. It's going to be difficult to get that heat cycle into the tyre. He needs to make sure he capitalises the most on this safety car restart and pulls out a healthy buffer to McTeer behind to be able to hold on to this position. As actually Christoph comes into the pit lane. He's had enough of those hard compound tyres and he's going to come in before we even get back underway. But we are now racing once again here in Brazil, and it's a lightning launch from Lamas, who's actually allowed McTeer to be under pressure here from Marvin Gum, as Zozo has made his way through on Menzu. Don't rule him out for a potential race victory after dominating the early stages of this one. Christoph has retired from the session. He will no longer take part. He had enough before the safety car came in, saw how close that field was and thought better of it. But for Alex Lamas, a dream getaway there. But for Dallin McTeer, he's already hunting him down. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see him move through this middle sector here, Omi, as Marvin Golm has been dropped by the top two.
Getting closer and closer. You can see placing the car on the outside line, just looking for any chances of cutbacks, and he's all over the back of the McLaren. Lamas absolutely nailed that restart. He was, of course, weaving left and right, as that's going to be a near dive bomb coming in from Zozo, who absolutely is in contention to win this race as well. But yeah, it was a lot of weaving. Lamas then took it over to the left-hand side to the pit wall, and then booted the throttle and went on his way towards turn one. Not a long run towards turn one once you make your way over the line, so there wasn't really much of a chance. One lap, fast forward, and now it's a complete different story because McTeer has been able to stay close through the middle sector. He, however, had to use a lot of battery in that middle sector, and that means that he's lost a lot of time and instead is falling into the clutches of Golm. This is a very interesting battle, and there you can see Zozo trying to set up the move in that Red Bull car, and he, as we mentioned, is one of our contenders for victory. So these two are about to go side by side, about to go wheel to wheel. Zozo is going to fly on by, and now he is going to be, right now, the next one to attack McTeer, who in turn is trying to do that to our race leader, Alex Lamas.
He certainly is indeed. Is he going to look for it into turns 6 and 7? No, he is not. But wide goes the McLaren. That might just open the door here for Dallin McTeer, and has it as he looks to the inside through turn 8. As we now head through Pinarino, it's going to be Lamas on the inside, but the outside for the Pico Tapato. And who's going to come out on top here? The McLaren looks to the outside, but that better grip, that superior traction from Dallin McTeer gives him that race lead, and the Haas driver hits the forefront for the first time here this evening on merit. So as he now makes his way through Yunsao, it's going to be Lamas trying to defend here from Zozo, who still might have a part to play against, of course, race leader Dallin McTeer. He's got the pace in that Red Bull, but can he show it? As Alex Lamas is getting closer onto Dallin McTeer, he's going to fight back into that first corner. To the inside goes the McLaren, nearing contact, some slight contact made between the pair, and Bremo retires in the pit lane. But we are going to see Lamas fight this one against Dallin McTeer. He's not going to go down without a fight. He knows there's still an opportunity to win this one, but can't get close enough into the Sino de Largo. But he shows he's not afraid of an attacking move. But Zozo may now try and get by as we head up into the Ferradura.
Yeah, now he's going to try and go on the attack. Well, that was a great couple of corners of battling, and now can Zozo try and put the assault immediately. Places the car on the outside, and Lamas into the back. There, and that's going to be Dallin McTeer, who's going to be wide, and there's contact made as well. So, a bit of a half move turned into a big move, and now 3 cars are all off over the road, and it's turned into chaos once again at Interlagos. It's Golm who's found himself in the lead. Banana out of nowhere is in second. Jotty with a penalty is in third, and a lot of our contenders have done what we said they should have avoided, and that is get into each other and make contact.
They certainly have indeed, and Marvin Golm has just been given a free opportunity to try and run away with things, but Fanana has somehow been able to keep with him. I think he's just got a bit of overtake to his disposal, does the Cadillac, as Zozo's coming to the pit lane to retire. But I want to know what happened to Dallin McTeer as well, because they were nowhere near. They're about half a second behind by the time they reached that braking zone, and McTeer just went straight on at turn 8 and gifted the opportunity to the likes of Marvin Golm. Jotty now in third as well, and McTeer trying to fight back. He's looking to the inside of the Ferrari, isn't able to get the move done, so it's not all over yet. Of course, we still have 10 more racing laps here tonight. And for Dallin McTeer, he needs to try and make amends, but for Marvin Golm, 1.4 seconds clear from Fanana. It could just be a second place is best here for the Haas driver, but I really do want to know. He's actually picked up front wing damage, and potentially was, in that whole scenario there, Alex Lamas pinballed into the side there of the Haas driver, picking up that front wing damage and forcing McTeer wide.
Yeah, so I've just had a look at it once again from the camera angle that we had, which wasn't the best, but it appears like Zozo went into the back of Lamas. Lamas then was sent into the back of McTeer. McTeer was forced out wide, and that's how the contact was made. So it was one car into another, and that is how they all ended up ruining their races. So the thing that Zozo is arguing is moving under braking. We can only focus on that later on. For now, we've got to focus on the race that we still have ongoing. McTeer, all we know, was minding his own business. He was getting on with his race, and he was punted in the back as well. So for him, he's, I'd say, definitely the innocent factor in that, into what happened originally. But he's still running highly up, and he's currently got himself up to third. He's got in deep, he's sliding, and Jotti's going to find himself back up through. And now also Menzu's going to fancy the chance into Ferradura. Very close stuff. Williams, Haas, side by side, not a lot of margin, and it's the Williams driver who gets by, but immediately McTeer sends it up the inside for an opportunity to try and have a fight back.
Yeah, he certainly is indeed. And now, as we make our way into the Pico de Pato, it looks like Concept 7's trying to go around the outside here of Dallin McTeer, is really starting to struggle with that front wing damage, and McLaren now sees himself through. 11 drivers remain, so it means that all but one driver will finish with a point scoring name to themselves in the social races, and at the moment that looks like Christopher, who's a lap down entirely to Thomas Balsa. But here we see Concept 7 all over the back of Menzu. He might even be able to make his way up into fourth. A potential podium is on the cards here for the former PCF7 driver from last season. Certainly would exceed his expectations coming into things. And now for the McLaren, in closer to the Williams car in front. And actually, Menzu makes the move onto Jotti, so he's able to get a car in between himself and Concept 7. So for Menzu, he's now up into third. It could still be a Williams 1-2 at the end of all this, as here comes Concept 7 getting closer, but he backs out of things. McTeer getting closer to the back of the McLaren as well. Don't rule out Gianluca Nolfo either in this one, as he now darts to the inside of Dallin McTeer. A late braking move into turn 8. Now as they head through Pinarino, it seems like Nolfo might just have the run out the corner, and now into the Pico de Pato. Concept 7 late on the brakes, and that's going to allow Nolfo to go straight into the back of him. McTeer also makes contact with the McLaren as they still run side by side, heading into turn 11 and through into Yensao. It's McTeer who just holds on but runs wide, but he can get the better exit in that stage as well. He can get the foot down that little bit earlier, and Nolfo will just have to sit behind until they reach at least the halfway point down this straight. It's going to be side by side between the Haas driver and the Mercedes. Alex Lamas still in the hunt for this one for at least a top 5 finish as well, as to the inside goes Nolfo. Concept 7 now to the inside of Jotti. They're side by side a little bit further up over, of course, that fourth place, and Concept 7 makes his way through. Golm has really checked out of the front of the field. It's further back. McTeer side by side with Gianluca Nolfo, who's now coming under pressure from Alex Lamas. It's all kicking off here on lap 29 and 30 of 36. Not long left, but it does certainly seem like Marvin Golm has a chokehold on that race lead at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. But as this social race has proven, things can change all of a sudden. But it's going to take quite something now for the race to completely change and go from the hands of Marvin Golm, who's on his way to victory. Dallin McTeer there, just looking to try and hang on. Contact, and that is going to be Barna up the inside of Alex Lamas. And it's going to be, once again, elbows being thrown on the circuit. And it's McTeer in 7th, Lamas is 8th, and then Barna is in 9th position. Thomas Balsa's directly behind in 10th, and Lamas on those hard compound of tyres, who's just looking to try and hang on, but the race completely changed, and McTeer's going to retire another one of originally the driver who was, one of our favourites for victory. And just an update on what happened. Zozo's, of course, had a look himself from his own POV, and he's taken blame as well for the incident that he had with Alex Lamas, which would mean that the whole incident would be his fault. Not of course anything major in terms of it's not a championship, but just for context from that perspective of the moment that we had, which has very much transformed this race.
It certainly has indeed, because we now have had Marvin Golm lead the way and Fanana in second. Fanana, where did he start exactly in this one? Changes. He started in 13th, did the Cadillac driver. He's now running in 2nd. Nolfo has just been able to make his move past on Jotty. We've just that in the background. 10 drivers now remain. So even though Christopher is a lap down, he will still end up in the top 10. Excuse me. But for Fernana, he might still be able to get the podium from 13th place on the grid. Concept 7 and Menzu will scrap over 3rd place as well. So these final 2 places on the podium are not said and done with just yet. The script has not been written for those places as of yet. And Fernanda goes deep through the first corner. That's going to give Menzu the opportunity to now fight back and potentially take that 2nd place away as Jotty has gone round in the background but will stay on board with this battle as here comes Menzu to the inside. Just not able to get the move done on the Cadillac. Not going to brake late enough. Had to lift and coast a little bit earlier. And Fernanda still able to hold on. 5 laps to go here, of course, in Interlagos. A 5-lap shootout for the final podium places. It looks like it's only between 3 drivers. Fernanda, Menzu and Concept 7 who will take those moments on the roster.
Yeah, and in what order will they be as well? Seems like so far Golem is on his way to the win. We know that. Who's going to be 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and all of the position downwards, because this is going to completely transform and it is going to completely change. We're heading to now the overtaking opportunity. Overtake mode for Menzu. Overtake mode for Concept 7 now for this entire next lap that is coming their way. And they're going to try and use that to have an attack on Fernana, who, as you mentioned, started 13th on the grid. They fought their way higher up the order, but now where are they going to be finishing by the time the checkered flag comes? The Williams draws alongside, dive bombs, makes the move into the first turn, and Menzu goes through but runs in deep in the process. And now there's going to be a great opportunity for Concept 7, who was right into the back of Fernana, but now do they have the opportunity on this run towards the 4th turn of the circuit? It seems like we'll be going there single file. So the Williams of Menzu goes through, Fernana in 3rd, and now Concept 7's going to try and turn it into a drag race as we head towards Ferragira.
And he might just be able to get the move done before we even get there, and he does. Concept 7 up into 3rd place. A spectacular drive as well from him from 9th on the grid. Nofo, he might still have a part to play in terms of the podium places. He now looks to the inside of the Cadillac. Around the outside he will go through the through Pinerino, and he gets the move done on the exit as we headed into the Pico to Pato. It could still be a Williams 1-2 or a Mercedes in that 2nd place, or even the McLaren of Concept 7. When we cross the line, it'll be 3 more racing laps to go. Menzu versus Concept versus Nolfo for that 2nd place, and the McLaren is certainly in prime position to take it, at least on this lap. Straight line mode, of course, activated. Battery will be being depleted by all the drivers as they make their way up into that first corner, but Concept 7 not close enough as of yet, and Marvin Golm extends that gap to 3.4 seconds. Alex Lamas might still get that top 5. He's behind the Cadillac of Fernana, but Concept 7 now under pressure from Nolfo, and we could see the Mercedes driver through, heading up into the Ferradura.
Yep, so another driver entered into the equation and entered into this mix for 2nd place in the race. And we did mention that it's not over, basically, from anyone downwards, because you just don't know who's going to be able to have the attack, who's going to be able to get to the critical part of the circuit, and at what moment. And as they're all in close proximity, it means there can always be a bit of chaos that can happen, like we've seen time and time again in this race. We're about to make our way onto the penultimate tour, so if you are these drivers who are in the lower end of this battle, that's contact there, and that's going to be Fernana, who was battling up against Alex Lamas, and it's all gone wrong in the background, but we're about to make our way onto the penultimate tour of this race, so another contact to add to the list for this race. But who's going to stand in 2nd? Who's going to be 3rd, and in what order is it going to be? This is the opportunity. Tucked directly in behind is Concept 7. Is the chance going to come down into turn 1? Will they pull alongside? Well, they do make a little movement just to be there and just to try to compromise the line of Menzu, and then try and have an attack now on this lap.
Yeah, but Gianluca Nolfo is all over the back here of the McLaren as they now run down Lorenzo Aposta into the Sino de Largo, and he looks to the inside. Does the Mercedes? He's late on the brakes, and is he into the side of Menzu? I think he was just able to stay out of the side pod there of the Williams driver, but he's through on Concept 7. But that would have been real heart in the mouth stuff there for Gianluca Nolfo, who might have just saw his chances on the podium slipping away by going into the side of Williams, but great avoidance from Gianluca. And for Concept 7, a potential podium might have just gone away from him. He might have just gone astray, but you never know what can happen on this final lap. We have seen some absolute chaos here tonight in Interlagos, and it certainly could get even more spicier here tonight as we head through Yunsao. One more lap remains. Marvin Gold will surely lead us to the line and across the line first, but who will pick up on that second place as we start the final tour now, Omi? Who is going to take this one? Because even if the top for these three drivers come into contact, Lamas and Balsa are all still in prime position to pick up the pieces.
There was a look by Gianluca down into the first turn. Looking further back, Balsa and Lamas also wheel to wheel as well. The Ferrari and the McLaren, and it's Balsa who's got ahead. But now critical moment coming up. Can Gianluca try and move up into second place? There'll be a defensive shape thrown, and it's going to be the position maintained by Menzi. But still remember, there is a chance of a drag race to the line. And here at Interlagos, it's not over until it's over. Maybe even into Ferradura. To the outside line looks the Mercedes. They're wheel to wheel, and the battery was surely used by the Mercedes driver there of Gianluca. And he just stays ahead of Concept 7 critically, but it was all going on in the battle for second place, and this one is not done. It's going to go all the way to the line. We've already mentioned, we've already had a few looks in this middle part of the lap where we'd usually see them go single file, but as it's the final lap, they're going to go all in this battle, and well, second place is absolutely going to be fought for, but the win is not. That is absolutely sealed. That is absolutely done, and this is going to be a great performance. Now being rewarded, Marvin Gold comes across the line. He avoided the chaos. He gets his reward. He takes the checkered flag first and wins in Brazil. Who's going to be in second? It's close over the line, 600ths of a second, but it's Menzu who's going to get there, and Gianluca looked left, looked right, but is going to have to settle for third, and then it was Concept 7 and Thomas Balsa, your top 5. 10 drivers finished by the end, but that is absolutely incredible stuff. Golden wins the social race, and it was, let's just say, one of the more chaotic social races that we have held so far.
That was absolute carnage and chaos all the way throughout, and Marvin Gold was the one who picked up the pieces and was able to just keep his nose clean the best and take that one all the way to the line, and was able to pick up on the carnage that happened on lap 26, where we saw Zozo, Muktir and Lamas all come to blows. And he said thank you very much and built that gap from Fanana in second. A spectacular drive from both Williams cars as well. But that certainly will go down in a lot of controversy, even for a social race, due to how many incidents there were. But, of course, Marvin Gold does take that race victory. So Williams 1-2 here tonight with Menzu in second. Then it's Nolfo who picks up on the podium. Concepts from 18th on the grid as well. A very strong drive from the Mercedes. Concept 7 narrowly misses out on the podium, but I think he'd be happy with that result. Same could be said for Thomas Balsa and Alex Lamas, who had some great pace at the start of the race. Unfortunately, that gamble on the strategy did not work, and that contact put a bit more effort and a bit more jeopardy that strategy as well. Fanana ends up in 7th, followed by Barna and Jotti. And our last finisher, even though he was a lap down, was Christopher, who, of course, I commend for finishing a lap down and carrying on all the way to the checkered flag. Some good learning found there. Dallin Muktir is our first of our retirements, along with Zozo, Mbuemo, Christoph, and Dori, Kamensky, Garcia, Marquez, and Partik, who was our first retirement of the evening. But Omi, as we head back, of course, to the commentary box, it was a spectacle. It was a very, very strong race indeed. Yes, there may have been a lot of contact, but there were some really nice pieces of racing as well. And it was just, overall, very chaotic race.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's only a social race, as we mentioned. I've done now, after today, 120 PSGL races, whether that be social races or it be an actual event. And yeah, it's going to be one that will remain in the memory as a lot of chaos and a bit of a drag race to the line as well to end it off with. So a lot happened, let's just say, at Interlagos. And it's going to be a very much chaotic game cycle. I can already tell you, well, the DLC, the second part of this game cycle. You know, at this point last year, basically, we were very much looking at a scenario where it was so hard to overtake, and the races were a little bit more calmer compared to F1 24. I feel like we were going a bit more back to having just pure chaos everywhere and lots of overtaking opportunities, just due to now the new regulation that we've got in Formula 1.
Yeah, I think that's certainly the case. I think with all this lifting and coasting, this battery management, especially at the minute as drivers are learning, especially in a race format against others. The different lines are being taken, and it certainly does, of course, mean that we have these a bit more chaotic races where drivers maybe even get caught out under braking, and that's them, of course, either into the back of someone or having to take really strong evasive action. It might even be even to a move they don't even mean to make, but it certainly is making these races a lot more entertaining, a lot more action-packed, and I'm excited for the season to come. But, Omi, talking about the season to come, of course, the calendar did get revealed mid-week, but if you have not seen it, let's bring it up onto your screens now. Here is the calendar for our first season on the F1 26 season pack here for season 43. We start off at Silverstone for a trip to China and Belgium before our first break week. Then after the break week, we make our first trip to the Madrid for a competitive session here at Madrid. Then Austria, Imola, Vegas, Mexico, Brazil, Bahrain, and Texas. It's the usual format, really, I think, Omi, for a first season, where after 3 rounds we have a break, then it's just flat out all the way till round 11. Is there any standout races there for you?
It honestly feels like a typical calendar that you'd get in a season 1. Lots of the circuits that make up a season 1 of a game cycle, we've pretty much got them. We've got a few others thrown in, like, for example, Shanghai, which is always very much interesting to see in Imola. So I'd say those two are very much somewhat of the outliers as to what we don't always get in the opening season of the game cycle. And then, of course, a new circuit, Madrid. That was always going to be coming in the inaugural season of the game cycle too. So we're going to be in for some campaign. All of the tiers are going to have a lot going on. And I think you've had the opportunity now as the viewer to see very much 2 different type of, well, how all the races are going to play out. It's been very chaotic up in, you know, the other split that's currently going on across all of the drivers that are participating in that level of pace. We've seen drag races at Spa. We've seen it all happen so far. And then equally, you've seen here today and all of the other social races for split 2 that there's been plenty of chaos, and there's also been some great battling. So I think you've got to see how the races will play out across both some of the higher tiers and then possibly some of the lower ones. I think they're going to have a lot to tackle in the opening season as they still learn and develop, but it's just going to make our life a lot of fun up here in the commentary box.
It certainly will indeed. It's going to be a lot of fun. And around some of these circuits where maybe battery management is going to be a little bit tricky, it certainly could add to that carnage and that add to that, of course, chaos we've seen in races like today. It's going to be a very interesting debut season with these regulations, but of course we will get underway with that in 3 weeks' time. July the 16th, where we first make our way to Silverstone. It will be the PC on the 16th, and then, of course, on the following Monday, which of course 20th, will be the PlayStation side. But I think, Omi, that is going to be all for tonight. Is there any last words from you before we head off?
Well, we've still got a PlayStation social race going on, so you can go see that. Along with, you can go and see some of the best on PC, the upcoming stars, but right at the top level, you can also see them participate in Split 1 right now. So that's going on. So there's still PSGL action to enjoy, and the races are about to get underway for them very, very shortly. But other than that, keep enjoying this little break period that we've got, and, you know, keep enjoying some of the social races and everything that's going on surrounding it. And I think now we've got the calendar, we know exactly when we're starting, we know the circuits that we're going to. I think it's time to start building some hype for season 43.
Certainly is indeed. Not too long to go until we get underway for the main season. If you want to join, of course, PSGL to be a driver, maybe even for Monday's social races, make sure you go onto the Twitter or the Instagram. I'm sure there is a link for the Discord on there, and you can join and then sign up for the social races to come. But yes, as Omi said, make sure you do tune in to Split 1 on PC or the PlayStation splits as well. If that was not enough racing for you, if that was not enough chaos to make you completely worn out and tired and mentally exhausted. But, of course, the main season starts in 3 weeks. Silverstone is where we kick things off. But for now, still have a couple more social races tickets out of the way before we get to that all-important Season 43, the debut of the F126 cars. But that's going to be all, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all very much for watching. Stay safe, stay well, and we shall see you on Monday. Thank you, and bye-bye.